The Urology Care Foundation estimates that urinary tract infections, or UTIs, are the cause for nearly 8 million doctor's visits per year. Now, I'm not here today to talk about UTIs in general. As you've just heard, they're a common enough occurrence. Instead, I would like to talk about UTIs and the link that they can have to brain function in elderly people and those who suffer from conditions such as Alzheimer's or dementia. This is a topic that I discovered through a friend who was caring for their grandmother who suffers from Alzheimer's, and that I later researched on my own when my own grandmother started to suffer from signs of dementia. I sincerely hope none of you will ever have to find this information useful, but if you ever find yourself in the care of an elderly relative or know someone who is, it could provide useful information. Today I'll first be discussing the impacts that UTIs can have on those who suffer from conditions such as Alzheimer's or dementia. Secondly, I will be discussing the impact that UTIs can have on the elderly in general, not just those who suffer from these conditions. And lastly, I will briefly discuss the link that scientists and doctors believe they have found in between these two conditions. Now to get to my first point, the actual effects that UTIs often have on those who suffer from conditions such as Alzheimer's and dementia and their related illnesses. The Alzheimer's Society, found at alzheimers.org.uk, lists these symptoms as sudden and unexplained change of behavior, increased confusion, agitation, and withdrawal. Now, as I've told you, I have personal experience with these symptoms in this situation, so I can confirm this happens with these illnesses and can be brought on or even worsened by UTIs as well. Now, one of the major problems with this is the fact that these symptoms often mimic the late stages of these conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia, and can often lead family members to believing that their loved ones are progressing into the late stages of this condition and their lives. Now that we've discussed how UTIs can impact those who suffer from these conditions, I'd like to talk how they can impact just the elderly in general. UTIs in elderly people can often result in a symptom called delirium. The problem with this is the fact that delirium seems to share a lot of symptoms with these conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's. So when elderly people get UTIs, they can often wind up showing these symptoms, and their family and loved ones can think they're showing early signs of these conditions, when realistically it's just a UTI and can be cleared up as soon as this UTI is cleared up. Now, according to the Alzheimer's Association, found at alz.org, there are approximately 2 million people living in long-term and residential care. Couple this with the fact that according to mentalhealth.net, 6 to 12% of these people will develop delirium in some form every year. We can see why this can be such an alarming thing. For my final point, I'd like to discuss the research that doctors and scientists are doing to discover the link in this briefly. Researchers at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, located in Los Angeles, formed a study in December 2021 in which they found a protein called IL-6 that they linked to these two causes. Now, the study was done on mice, but it showed promise in suppressing this protein and the fact that they could lessen these symptoms and get rid of them. The full study can be found at cedars-sinai.org, but for a lack of time, if I've piqued your interest, take a look at your own, and all I'll say on the matter is the fact that it's promising in reducing or alleviating these symptoms in a faster and easier manner. That's all I've got for you today. I've discussed UTIs and how they can affect those who suffer from conditions such as Alzheimer's and dementia. I've discussed how it can affect elderly people in general, and I've discussed the link that researchers and doctors believe they found. Given the nature of this speech, I'd like to end on a quote from Tia Walker on elderly care. "To care for those who once cared for us is one of the highest honors." Thank you for your time.